What is up, fight fans? Thank you so much for joining me once again here on HYFNTV. I'm Kyle Dyer, and we are coming to you with the show today. Finally, we have got one of the biggest heavyweight bangers ever in the history of the UFC in action this weekend. And also, we've got somebody making history in the UFC, but not a fighter, as well as a boxer who's just announced his latest opponent. And this one is one that might be a little bit of a head scratcher to some. All that coming up right here on HYFN-TV's Combat Sports Report. Welcome once again to the Combat Sports Report. We are coming to you after a weekend off from UFC competition, but that doesn't mean that there wasn't anything to talk about in the combat sports world. Let's kick off the show with boxing, as controversial boxing newcomer and YouTube star Jake Paul has announced his latest opponent, and it comes as a bit of a surprise, as on February the 26th, he will fight Tommy Fury, the brother of the current undefeated heavyweight boxing champion Tyson Fury in Saudi Arabia. Tommy Fury may have the name to sell pay-per-view buys, but that's about the only leg that they have to stand on in that department, as Fury holds a record of 8-0 professionally. But the deeper that you dig, the less impressive that looks. Fury's 8 opponents sport an abysmal combined record of just 27 wins, 176 losses, and 5 draws or no contest, with 10 of those 24 wins coming from his last opponent, Daniel Bochonsky, who was 10-1 at the time of their meeting. Jake Paul has made headway as an outspoken advocate for fighters' rights, using the platform that he has to demand organizations compensate fighters at a higher rate and provide expanded health care while encouraging fighters to push for unionization. However, from a standpoint of quality of opponent, Tommy Fury doesn't do much to grow his brand as a legitimate boxer. His recent opponents have at least been respected fighters, although semi-retired fighters like Ben Askren and Tyron Woodley, who were grappling heavy fighters in their prime, and Anderson Silva, an all-time great in mixed martial arts with very little pure boxing experience. Perhaps this Fury fight will be a tune-up matchup for a bigger opponent later in the year while attempting to score a highlight reel finish to make big news. But this could be a risky matchup if Fury comes out and lives up to his name. A Fury win would be both shocking and detrimental to both Paul's brand and as a fighter, as well as the quest to help other fighters for their rights moving forward, to which his legitimacy is paramount. Now, the UFC will make organizational history this weekend at Fight Night in Las Vegas, but not for what's happening inside the octagon, but for what's happening just outside of it, as earlier this week, Laura Sanko was announced as octagon side color commentator. This makes just the first female commentator in the modern era, and only the second ever, with the only other being Kathy Long all the way back in 1993 at UFC 1. Sanko certainly knows what she's talking about when it comes to mixed martial arts. As a karate black belt and a 4-1 amateur MMA record, she also won her only professional bout in Invicta before retiring from the octagon to start a family. Laura has been a part of the UFC team since joining as a backstage reporter in 2016, before working commentary on the Contender Series alongside the likes of Paul Felder and Daniel Cormier. Congratulations to Laura Sanko. She continues to blaze a trail for women in the MMA world. UFC Fight Night comes at us this weekend from the Apex in Las Vegas, but your drink of choice is probably going to have to be a little bit different this week than normal, as this one is coming to you from kind of a strange time. 1 a.m. Eastern Time is the start of the main card, so it's of course 11 p.m. Mountain Time. This one, though, is going to be a fun one. We will have UFC royalty as the Knockout King, Derek the Black Beast Lewis, throws hands with Sergey the Polar Bear Spivak. Lewis comes into this fight on the heels of 2 straight TKO losses, which has us wondering if we are seeing the beginning of the end for Lewis. But no matter what, he still holds the fire in his hands with a record 13 knockouts in the UFC to his credit. Derek Lewis will have one outcome in his mind this Saturday, and that is to knock Spivak out, which is exactly what you can look for him to try and do. Remember, 2 fights ago, Derek Lewis hit current number 5 heavyweight contender Tai Tuivasa with his best shots. Tai ate those shots and hit Lewis with his own flurry and forcing the stoppage in the second round. In his last fight at UFC 277 in Dallas, a fight that I watched in person from about 5 rows off the octagon, Lewis got clipped again and stopped in the first round by current number 3 heavyweight Sergey Pavlovich. Lewis immediately protested the stoppage, but it was clear that he was hurt and likely just a few shots away from being knocked out for real. So while I didn't like the timing of the stoppage, it was probably heading in that direction either way. Point being, I'm beginning to question Derek Lewis's chin or will to continue fighting at a high level. It seems like recently when Derek starts catching big blows, he begins to wilt, but the question will be, is that a mental thing or is that a physical thing? Spivak, on the other hand, he's not a poor striker, but he's also not the greatest. He certainly is a capable striker, having knocked out the likes of Tai Tuivasa, although early in his career, and Jared Vandera. He's a good enough grappler to hang around with guys like Alexei Olenek and work a decision win in that victory in the past. But Derek Lewis is a huge jump in quality from those opponents. You know, you can say Tai is number 5 now, but you know that was a long time ago when Tai and Spivak squared off. The thing about this one is I think that if Spivak can hurt Lewis early, he's got a chance to shock the MMA world and win, or he can grapple his way to a victory. However, I don't think that that's going to happen. I don't think that's the way it's going to go. I think this one stays on the feet. Derek Lewis picks up a knockout win to reinsert himself in the title contender conversation. And that's all we got for you on the Combat Sports Report this week. Remember, you can always catch us live on HYFNTV, but if you miss us, no sweat. You can always catch us on HYFNTV.com on demand, also on your Roku device. We've always got your latest reactions, your latest previews, and the news all over the combat sports world. Don't miss us next week, as we will recap what happens on Fight Night this Saturday, as well as preview the upcoming events of the weekend following and any news that happens in between. Thank you so much for joining us, and I hope you have a great weekend.